I loved the whole thing. I thought it was awesome. I am uncomfortably aware that that might be as good as it gets so far as a birth goes. I just thought it was awesome. I loved the whole process. It was so cool to watch everything. The Kaitlyn that struggled with prenatal depression totally transformed through the labor and delivery. She was a totally different person. When she hit the point of, I can't do this, and we said, but you're already doing it. You're doing it. And we offered, why don't you say, I feel like I can't do this, but the Lord will help me. And that's what she would start going, I feel like I can't do it, but I can do it with the Lord's help. And it was so cool. It was so cool to watch how she handled it.
Welcome back to the podcast, you guys. Here we are with another birth story. And today I have with me my essential birth student, Kaitlyn. Will you take a moment, say hi to everybody, introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about where you guys live and how many children you have and all of that kind of stuff, and then we'll dive in.
Yeah, so my name is Kaitlyn. This is my husband, Kale, and our daughter, Eden. And she's our first and only right now. So we live right outside of the Charlotte, North Carolina area. Kale works for a construction company and workforce development. I'm a stay-at-home mom and a piano teacher.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I'm excited to have you both here. I think some of my favorite ones where we get to include dads because we don't hear enough from dads. That's, benefit of having the birth class in the house where I can pull that information out, but dads get to choose if they come on the podcast. So So thank you for being here, Kale. We're excited to have you too. Okay, well, let's just kind of dive in. Let's talk about your pregnancy first, if you want to walk me through what that was like for you, and then we'll move on from there.
Yeah, so we had been married 2 months, and that's when we found out I was pregnant. So we were super excited. We wanted to have a baby pretty much right away. So, my pregnancy, started out pretty normal. I had nausea till the second trimester, but pretty typical, nothing crazy, pretty normal, not pregnancy nausea. But my progesterone was low. So I was on progesterone suppositories, pretty much until the third trimester. I think partly just to be safe. I don't know that I needed to take it that long, but they were it doesn't hurt anything. And, I took that till I was in the third trimester. I had anemia during pregnancy. That my midwife was taking my blood every so often, and it came back that my iron was really low. So I went to a hematologist, and they wanted me to start iron infusions. So they have a few different kinds that are safe during pregnancy. The first kind I just did not do well with. It pretty much knocked me out. I had zero energy, and I just didn't feel I was nervous to go back in and get it again because it just felt off. So they switched me to a different kind of iron, and that worked great. So they got my levels up where they wanted them to be. Then I'm just trying to think of anything that would be noteworthy. I think, so kind of towards the end of maybe the last month and a half of pregnancy, maybe not quite a month and a half, I got super itchy out of nowhere. And, that's kind of a red flag. So my midwife got all my bile levels checked out, and everything looked normal, but I was having all the signs of cholestasis in pregnancy. So my liver not being where it needs to be. So it was very weird. They still don't really know why that happened. She said I could have just been super sensitive to my levels changing at all, maybe, but that was kind of scary because we had planned on doing a home birth. And then she was like, hey, if you do end up having cholestasis, I'm not gonna be able to help you do a home birth. And I was like, ah. But thankfully everything came back good. So I was still able to. And then the itchiness went away maybe a couple weeks before she was born. So super weird. I don't know why, but
yeah, that's so interesting.
Yeah, that's pretty much, those are all the noteworthy things that I guess happened with pregnancy. Everything else was pretty typical.
Was it? That's good. How about how was your body feeling and stuff during pregnancy? Did you have any aches or pains or anything that you can relate to other things that you dealt with, and maybe some cures or things you felt helped?
Yeah, I had a lot of round ligament pain, especially in the third trimester. I watched these pregnant moms just go on walks in our neighborhood, and I'm just I could not do that the last trimester. It was so painful.
It was more than the last trimester.
Yeah, but it was the worst, obviously, the last trimester. The only thing that helped was getting in water and being just completely submerged. And so his uncle and aunt had a pool with a hot tub, and it would be the beginning of November, and I would just be out sitting in their hot tub. It'd be cold, and I was just I just need to get my belly in water. It was the only thing, and it took away the pain completely, but nothing else worked like that. So that was definitely the biggest thing. It was just it was so hard to just move around because it would just hurt with any kind of movement. So,
is that like
yeah.
including sleep and stuff, even when you were lying down?
No, I would say it went away when I was sleeping. I had like my hips hurt when I slept. You know, at the last trimester, it's like everything hurts and you're ready to be done. You know, but yeah, my hips would hurt when I slept, but it was different from like the round ligament pain. I'm assuming it was round ligament pain. It was like right at the base of my belly. That's what everyone said. So yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing that. Dad, did you notice anything during pregnancy, or kind of what was your take on pregnancy, and how did you support her?
I mean, yeah, it was, she seemed to be in a lot of pain with like her abdomen. What would you call it?
The round ligaments, yeah.
Round ligament area. She just like, I mean, if we walked more than like 50 steps, she was just like, I'm done. And so that
and like
was,
even like doing like lifting things, like even our laundry basket or something, it was just like, I can't do this.
Yeah, moving the laundry basket, going on a 1/8 of a mile walk in the neighborhood. She was just, I just always seen where you were supposed to go on walks and do this and do that. And it was
active.
Any sort of activity just debilitated her. And so that was like, whoa. And
I don't think everyone has it that bad, but
yeah, that was really different to see that. Because like you said, we'd see other pregnant mothers and dads walking in the neighborhood, and I was like, okay, that's definitely not what we're experiencing. You know, if she takes 20 steps, she's just like talking about how bad she hurts.
Poor
and
thing.
So that was a lot.
I was like, I remember like getting on your podcast and looking like round ligament pain stuff, like trying to see if there was anything. But really, water was the only thing that really helped, unfortunately. So
yeah, and then there was a lot of she was really, really depressed.
Yeah,
She went through pretty severe depression. We didn't realize it, I don't think. Kaitlyn will tell you more about it. But from my perspective, it was really hard for me because I'm more of like, I grew up in my family owned a business, and we're just really gung-ho. Basically, you got to be almost dying to not go to work or not get up and do. We were like gung-ho people. And we thought it was spiritual. We thought something spiritual was going on.
Well, because before I actually got pregnant, there's a lot of stuff emotionally I was working through. There's a lot of anxiety and stuff. I wouldn't say I was depressed then, but there's just a lot of anxiety and stuff I was working through already. And so when I got pregnant, I think it gradually got worse, like the further in pregnancy I got. But I didn't recognize it as, oh, this is prenatal depression and anxiety, because I was like, well, I was already working, I was already dealing with some anxiety before I got pregnant, but it just like amped up like crazy when I was pregnant with her. And so I didn't recognize it as prenatal depression and anxiety. My midwife would ask me about it, like, have you been feeling depressed or anxious or whatever? And I was just like, was like, oh no, because I was like, that's not what this is. Like, I know why she's asking, and it's not actually prenatal depression and anxiety. It's just me going through stuff, And so I always just like, oh no, like, yeah, there's been some things, but it's fine. Like, I'm working through it. Like, and it actually really wasn't fine. I was really struggling. Like, I never was like suicidal or anything, but it was kind of the point where I was like, my husband would be better off without me. And like, those were thoughts that were going through my head. And I just didn't recognize it as being, hormonal at all until like, she was like 2 weeks before she was born. We had a friend who they had their baby a month before we did. And she was like brand new postpartum. I think her baby was like 2 weeks old. And she was sharing about her postpartum depression. And I was listening to her talk, and I was like, man, like everything you're saying, I'm experiencing, except I'm still pregnant. And I've been this way for like a while. And I just remember feeling like when I realized that, I was like crying my eyes out. I was like, Kale, like, I don't know what's going to happen, because like I've heard it can get worse after the baby's born. And like, I am like terrified of where my mind's going to go if it gets worse after she's born. And, he was just like, okay, let's just take one day at a time, because like that really was kind of what got me through, was just like literally just taking it one day at a time. Because if I thought any further ahead than that, it was like, I couldn't, like, I literally couldn't think that far ahead. So we just took it one day at a time. It turned out that like it was night and day difference after she was born. Like, I did so much better. So we'll get there. But yeah, that was definitely the biggest struggle with pregnancy. Like, physical stuff and everything aside, the depression, anxiety was definitely the worst part.
Yeah, it was very bad.
Yeah.
It was like days I would come home and she would have taught 1 or 2 piano lessons. So like 30 to 40 minutes worth of stuff. And then she would just, basically, she just existed. And
I just felt like I had no motivation to do anything. Like, yeah.
And like I said, from my background, like I just had no ability to relate at all. It's like, I mean, I don't know. You just push through it, you know? And again, we didn't realize it for what it was. It was a mixture of some spiritual things and just a massive change of life. She came from, her family had 14 children. So she left a massive house to live with me. And so we thought like spiritual, practical changes. Yeah, she's just, you know, when you leave your family and give yourself to a man, there's a lot of changes that happen and you have to discover who you are. So we thought that was what was happening. And there was some of that happening, but it was mixed with a lot of legit prenatal depression. And so it was just, it made everything so challenging.
Everything's just amplified. Like the prenatal depression stuff just amplified anything that was like already maybe you felt a little bit anxious about. So,
and Kaitlyn's a very articulate, deep thinker. And so like she would get thoughts and just spiral out of control with thoughts. The depression would just take her places in her mind where I was like, what in the world? Like that makes no sense. Like, yeah, it was wild. That was a lot of fear that tried to creep in for both of us. Like, man, if it's like this now, what's it? I was like, I don't know how I'm going to raise a child and keep a wife afloat after we have this baby. Because, like, I didn't say that to her. Obviously, that wouldn't have been very helpful. But it was like that was probably the hardest thing. Was like, man, this could. I was just like, I prayed a lot, just preparing myself. Like, listen, man, you just got to be ready. If your wife is just totally incapable of handling the child once she's here, like, we'll figure it out. The Lord will show us.
You didn't tell me neither.
It's like, we'll figure it out. Like, the Lord doesn't give us anything we can't handle. So don't panic. Don't be fearful. And then, yeah, like after she had the baby, there was still a lot of practical things we had to work through. But the clear and obvious psychological changes went away. The depression, it was obvious. It was
like overnight, just my whole mood was totally different.
Immediately different.
I'm so glad you guys are sharing this because we do take a lot of time. I think that we, at least people are aware of postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, postpartum disorders. I think that we've done a good job over the last decade or so kind of bringing that to light, but we don't talk enough about prenatal depression. I know I've mentioned it here and we talk about it in the birth course, but there's a lot of women that might not know that that is totally a thing. And I can relate to both of you. If you know a little bit about my story, I had never experienced depression in my life. I had, family members that had said they had it and stuff. And I was with Kale. I'm like, just like get moving, like what? I don't understand what that means. Like, what is this quote depression? And then when I experienced it during pregnancy, I was like, whoa, like this must be what people talk about. Like I'm not functioning right. My thoughts are weird. It was really interesting. And it just felt like this dark, heavy cloud hanging over me that I couldn't get out of. And same thing. We did spiritual blessings, right? Like my husband gave me a priesthood blessing. We did a lot of prayer. We bought candles. My husband's like, maybe, like I've heard that the olfactory system, like let's try scents. And like we tried so many things. And sometimes it's just hormones mixed with life, mixed with who knows what. And it's just hard. So it sounds like you have a good support system, a husband that loves you. And I love that he shared too, like, and this is what was going on for me. Like you said, I didn't even know you were having these thoughts, kind of like holding strong for you, being your rock, even though he's like, okay, what kind of preparation do we need and things? Because it affects the whole family, like how, you're bonded and we're married and this is, we have a baby together and it's just, it's not always easy. And so I'm really glad that you shared that because I think there are going to be other women listening that same thing, they're going to perk up and be like, wait, I might be experiencing that too. And just like you, it wasn't until after, there was that prenatal depression part with my first that I was very aware of, but it wasn't until after I had my third baby and I started teaching birth classes. And I had a woman come in and talk to my class about postpartum depression because she experienced it and she was an expert in it now, that she started talking and I just like sat back and I was like, I am checking every single box. I had no idea. And mine went along with nursing too, where I like pulled a lot of that in with the nursing hormones. And it was like I was pregnant, I was nursing. Then I got pregnant and I was nursing. And then I got pregnant and I was nursing. And I'd done that for 6 years. And same thing. I identified with all of that. And I'm like, oh, I guess we need to talk about this a little more because I didn't realize that I was having some of these other issues. And then when I stopped breastfeeding my third baby, same thing. It was like overnight. And I was like, I like came back to myself and I'm like, have I been in a cloud for the last 6 years? What just happened? So thank you so much for being willing to share that because I know it's going to serve a lot of women that are listening. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. It's something I'm really passionate about because like I didn't recognize it for most of my pregnancy. And I wonder if things could have been different if I did.
Yeah. Well, and it'll be so curious going into your next one. You might not experience it all, first of all. Yeah. But if you do, now you know what to look for and you'll have some tools and you guys can work together on that. So I love that. I love that so much. Will you talk to me a little bit about your providers? You talked about wanting to do a home birth. Did you end up doing a home birth? Did you end up with home birth providers? Did you end up with an OB? What do your providers look like?
Yeah, so I knew pretty much from the get-go that I wanted to do a home birth. I honestly was like a little bit afraid of hospitals. I was a little afraid of, I was a little scared I would be anxious, and that was something I just didn't want. I wanted to feel very comfortable, and I knew I would feel that way at home. So for me, I kind of knew I wanted the home birth pretty much from the get-go, as long as I didn't risk out or anything. So my sister is a brand new doula. She's 19, so she kind of just started.
I love it.
I texted her because my mom had midwives, but my mom was really high risk. She has a bunch of health issues. And so the midwife she went to, they didn't do home births or anything. So my mom never did a home birth, even though she kind of wanted to. And so that wasn't really an option for me. So I texted my sister and I was like, hey, do you know anybody that I could meet and see if they would work? And so she sent me the names of a few different people. And I met with one lady. I talked to another lady on the phone. And it just, I don't know, nothing ever really clicked. I wanted someone who was a Christian and really passionate about the Lord. That was something that was really important to me. So that was one thing. And then also, personality and just the way you kind of vibe with the other person. I just wasn't really feeling it with a couple of the ladies. So I talked to a couple of them and I just wasn't feeling it. And my sister connected me with someone else who she was starting out as a midwife, but she was kind of shadowing another one as she was kind of learning. And she connected me with her, and her name was Carly. And she had delivered hundreds of babies in the hospital and stuff, but she had kind of wanted to move to a more holistic approach, a more natural approach to things. And so she opened up her own home birth practice, and she had another midwife on with her. And we did a Zoom call with her, me and my husband did, and it was just we pretty much were immediately yeah, I like this. She felt it was different than just going to a doctor's office or something. She felt like a friend, somebody that you knew and were comfortable just sharing about your personal life, not just health stuff. And so we just clicked right away, and I knew that she was the person I wanted to go with. So, yeah, she was a CNM. She had the first time I came into her office, I met her 2 midwife assistants. I met her. We kind of just got to know each other. And then almost all of our visits, except for one test I had to go in and do, was at my house, which was super nice. So I didn't have to worry about driving anywhere.
Yeah, I love that. That's benefits of home birth midwives, right? That do that. I loved having the appointments in my home. That's so beautiful. How did your husband feel about that? So I know he stepped out with the baby for a second, but how did your husband feel about you choosing to have a home birth and choosing a midwife?
Yeah, so for him, home births were just normal. In the community he grew up in, a lot of people had home births. His mom had home births with all of hers. In fact, 3 of them she free birthed with. So he was just not fazed by it at all. Yeah, he was yeah, I'm totally cool with you doing home birth. So, yeah, he was very comfortable, very supportive. And it was basically whatever you feel led to do, whatever you have peace to do, I want to support that. So
that's awesome. It's funny because my kids, I have 3 boys, and they know about birth, and they know about home birth, and they know about all these things. And they're all yeah, I can't wait to have these experiences, to have babies. And, my wife's going to give birth at home. And I was like, wait. That sounds great, but she might not want to do that. You guys are going to have to chat about that. But I love that it's at least normal for them, so that should mom choose to do that, it's maybe they're going to have the opposite of she chooses to give birth in a hospital, and they're going to have to be wait, I have to work through this,
Yeah.
But I don't think that would actually happen, but it's kind of funny. But I did, yeah, I love that they at least know about it. But that's so cool that that's his experience because yes, it's like when you see it and it's normal, then you don't have to be afraid of it, you know? So that's great. All right, we swapped mom out for a second with baby, and Kale's here with me. So I just wanted to ask a couple questions. So I did ask your wife right before you jumped in here. I said, "How did your husband feel about you choosing to have a home birth and have midwives and stuff?" And she shared with me a little bit about your background and your mom and stuff like that. Did you want to add anything to it though?
Yeah, I mean, with the home birth, I was excited. I I love a challenge. I'm an adventure. I love challenges. I like being pushed to my limits. I did an EMT class back in 2022. 2022, I had done an EMT class, and I still have my EMT certificate. I ran some calls with the volunteer fire department, and I don't know, like it just didn't scare me. There was like a little bit of that unknown, like, oh man, what if it is scary? But yeah, I was excited. I wanted a home birth. I was excited for a home birth. I didn't really care for a hospital birth, but yeah, the home birth was really cool to me. Um, and so leading up to it, it was like just trying to prepare, reading it. We listened to y'all's course and went through all that, and then I listened to a lot, and she was so prepared. Kaitlyn was so prepared that it took a lot of the fear away from me.
That's awesome. That was going to be one of my questions, kind of leaning on the partner here. I wanted to hear kind of how you supported her and how you guys worked together in preparing for the birth. So you said you did the birth course and stuff. Were there things that you took from there that you were doing pretty regularly, or things that once you learned them, you were like, oh, that's really helpful. I'm going to take that information and take it with me into pregnancy and labor?
Yeah, probably a little bit of both. We practiced a little bit. I don't think we practiced as much as some of the people we listen to on podcasts and birth stories. We probably should have practiced some more. But both Kaitlyn and I are both the type of people where if we listen to something or we read it, it sticks in our head. So we don't have to consistently review something. So we would take in the information, and then we kind of had it. And then Kaitlyn was just super prepared. And with her, the things she did for work, she did elderly care and piano teaching. So she had a fair amount of spare time to write things out and take time to come up with a plan. So we would review it each night. We both communicate a lot. So we would just communicate at night, to each other and during the day. And so we practice. We didn't practice near as much as some of the people we listened to, and then we said, okay, that sounds like some good information. Let's store that and use it. We had all the like the cards of her favorite scriptures and words of affirmation, and we had clothes picked out to show her as she's in the hard spots. Like, think of our daughter wearing this, which none of that ended up doing any good, which Kaitlyn will probably share later on. So yeah, we practiced the different positions and different moves that would relieve pressure for her. Again, we practiced them, but not that much, like maybe once a week or once every other week. And then the training I did as an EMT had me, decently prepared as well.
So you talked about the kind of the cholestasis that wasn't there, at least via test, but she was having some stuff with that. And then the depression. Were there any other challenges that you guys worked through during pregnancy or labor that you feel like would be a benefit for other people to hear?
The biggest thing, I think outside of that, so the cholestasis, the itchiness that she went through for a few weeks was rough. Like, what do we do with this? And then the depression was pretty much the whole time. That was really tough, just navigating how to deal with that. And then I think combined with the depression, the next hardest thing was I was worried how I was going to handle, for me personally, as the man, the husband, I was worried about how I was going to approach the actual birth. Specifically when she got near transition and in transition, we heard all the stories about how at some point of the labor, your wife's going to hit the point where she says, I can't do this. And so you and your doula, whoever, y'all need to team up, and and talk her through it, tell her she can do this, she's got it, she's strong. And I was really worried there because Kaitlyn and I's personality are so different in that area. Kaitlyn's very strong, but I'm more of like, suck it up, you got it, just power through. And Kaitlyn's depression, like, the drop of, like, if a fly landed in the room, it was just like, we can't do this. So I was horrified that she was going to hit that I can't do this very early on, and that I was going to crush her by telling her, no, you actually can do this. And then it was just going to crush her. So that was a big, for several months, I was really worried what that was going to look like. And then about a month before our baby was born, our best friends had their baby. And the mother is much more of my personality of our best friends, the mother there. She's much more my personality, and she had a terrible birth. And so she mentioned how she actually wished they would have gone to the hospital, that she actually meant it when she said, I can't do this. She said, hindsight, I wish we had gone. And so I was like, oh no, how do I know when she's just saying it and I need to help her push through, and when she's saying it and when she really means it? That really scared me. That was a lot I just didn't know what it was going to be like. So those were the three main things. And so that, being nervous of how to help my wife see she was powerful enough to do it while also not crushing her, the depression and the cholestasis there. And then she struggled. Her body took a beating through the growing the baby inside her and everything. She was constantly hurting. And so that was, learning how to help her through that and not being able to do anything. And that was just a whole new thing for me.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for being so honest and sharing that. All right. So what kind of preparation, Kaitlyn, did you have? So I talked to your husband a little bit about what you guys worked on together and stuff. What were the things that were really helpful for you coming up to labor? And then let's dive into your birth story.
Yeah. So I took red raspberry leaf tea. I think I started right in the third trimester. I just did like 1 cup a day. There were a few times I did 2 cups a day, but like I would get a lot of Braxton Hicks, and so my midwife's like, don't do that. Yeah, there's like a third trimester tea I did that had red raspberry leaf in it, and then I had a red raspberry leaf tea, and I did both those together, and it was like, yeah, let's not do that. So I did have to stop actually at 35 weeks taking the red raspberry leaf tea because my midwife was kind of nervous because at night, like the Braxton Hicks would come like 3 minutes apart and like almost be a little crampy. And she was just like, let's like tone it down with the red raspberry leaf until we're a little bit closer. So I stopped for like 2 weeks. I stopped taking it at 35 and then started taking it again at 37. And then I did evening primrose oil at 37 weeks when I started doing that. I just did that every night.
Did you insert vaginally or take orally or both?
I inserted it vaginally. Yeah. And then I did some relaxation practice, but I don't know. I just like tried to have like I don't know. I had a certain essential oil I would diffuse because I know, like you said, like I remember listening to the podcast. It was like, if you can have like a scent you associate with like relaxing. And so I did like lavender oil and would just try to like practice like relaxing my whole body and stuff. So I did that some. Probably wasn't super, super consistent with it, but I tried. So anyway, and then I forgot to diffuse lavender during labor and everything anyway. So I was like, gosh, whatever. And then I did a little bit of perineal massage, but not a ton. It was just kind of sporadic here and there. And that was like pretty much all I did for preparation.
Well, awesome. How about any final appointments coming up to your pregnancy? Did you choose to have vaginal exams or anything like that? Did like anything with your midwife before, any information you had before going into labor? And then how many weeks were you when you finally went into labor?
Yeah, so I did not do any cervical checks. I didn't really want to if I could avoid it. And I ended up not needing them at all during labor or anything. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it just worked out.
How many weeks were you when you went into labor?
I was 38 weeks and 6 days. So yeah, I had a little bit of like, I thought I was going to labor at 38 weeks in 1 day though, because I woke up like, I want to say it was like 2 a.m. and I had like painful contractions every 3 minutes. And so I thought that was it. I was like, okay, I'm going into labor. I'm going to let Kale sleep because it's only 2 a.m. But like I was on the ball, and I started getting to the point where I was moaning through them, and I woke Kale up and he was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, I'm having contractions. So that, like, yeah, they stayed 3 minutes apart until like 8 a.m. And then they kind of like, my mom was like, okay, well, try to sleep in between them because you haven't got a lot of rest. And so as I did, they just started to kind of fizzle out. And so we went on a walk around the neighborhood, and they started to come back a little bit, but then it was like they would only stay going while I was moving. And so I was just like, I don't think this is it. If I sat down, they would just kind of fizzle out. So yeah, so that wasn't really it, but we kind of thought it was. Like he'll call out of work and everything. And so, but I know like all that helps prepare your body for the real thing. So I know it wasn't wasted, but it was kind of like we were like ready to go, and I was like, oh, it's not really. But yeah, at 38 weeks and 6 days. So yeah, it was interesting because I woke up at 3 a.m. to my water breaking, and like literally 24 hours before, my grandma had passed away, like exactly 24 hours before. And so like the 2 nights before she started to calm, like we did not get much sleep because so she was born a Sunday night. My water broke Saturday night. So Friday night we were at my family's house, like saying goodbye to my grandma and everything. We had a sweet moment where we hadn't told anyone our baby's name, but we kind of sent everyone out of the room and just whispered it to my grandma. I don't know if she was like conscious or not, but I got to like tell her baby's name and everything. And then she passed at 3 a.m. and my family called me, and they like at 3 a.m. and told me like she just passed. And so like we stayed up and just talked for a little bit and kind of like grieving. And so we didn't really get a lot of sleep that night because we'd already gone to bed late. And then the next night, 24 hours later, my water broke at 3 a.m. with her. So like that was all the sleep I got after that too. So we went into it with not having a lot of rest, but it was funny because like for some reason I was like, my water's not going to break. Like that's not how my labor is going to start. Like my labor is going to start with like having contractions. And it was like a subconscious thing. I was like, this is how it's going to go. But I didn't realize that until my water broke, and I was like, this is not how it's supposed to go. And I kind of had a little bit of like a freak out moment, and maybe Kel can share later, but he said like he was a little bit nervous when I kind of freaked out when my water broke, because he was like, oh boy, he's such the start and she's already panicking. Like, but it just took me a minute. I just had to kind of like adjust and be like, okay, this is happening. This is how it's happening. But yeah, then I was a little worried because I know that water is supposed to be clear and everything. And there was like ever such a slight pink tinge. And I was like, is that what it's supposed to look like? And I'm like sending my mom pictures, and she's like, it's fine. Like, that's totally normal. That's clear. And Kale was just like, trying to calm me down. Like, hey, it's okay. This is happening. Like, it's okay that it started like this. I know it's not what you're expecting, but it's okay. And so I was also, another reason I was like kind of panicking is like, I don't have any diapers or anything. I don't know why I didn't get any like adult diapers. Like, what am I going to do? So I'm just like, my mom was like, the crazy part is my grandma, because she just passed the night before, she had been using diapers. She had been incontinent. And so my mom was like, we have extra here. And so Kale ran and got them. And so I just sat in the empty tub because like, where else am I going to go? And it was really good just to have that time where it was just like, just me. I'm just sitting there in the tub. I hadn't really had contractions yet, just some Braxton Hicks, nothing crazy. And just sitting there like, okay, like kind of adjusting, being like, okay, this is happening and it's okay. And so Kale like texted me a Bible verse, and I just was like able to just kind of have that moment to just calm down and accept it and have that little bit of like peace before everything started. So that was really good. I feel like I got in a good headspace, and by the time he got back with the diapers, like I was in a good spot mentally. But I had a little bit of that freak out moment at the beginning because it was just like, this isn't how it's supposed to happen. I don't know why. I didn't want my water to break when it started. I don't know. But it was just like what I was expecting was different for some reason. So I did want to like labor with just me and Kale for as long as possible. That was kind of my plan. And then I was going to have my mom come. My mom's had 11 babies biologically, and so she just knows a lot. And I have a lot of trust in her. She's also a naturopath, and she did take a doula course. She doesn't pursue it professionally, but she was there for all my sister's births. She has 3 kids. And so I just knew I wanted her there. I just trusted her a lot. And if she told me to do something, I knew I was going to like trust her advice. Like, I love Kale, but he's a guy and he hasn't had babies before. And so I'm like, I don't know. I just like, I knew I would want my mom there. So, But I wanted to go as long as I could with just me and Kale and see how long I could go like that. And so I did try to go back to bed, but the contractions, like 2 hours after my water broke, it's like 5 a.m. the contractions were picking up, and I was just like, yeah, I'm not gonna be able to go back to sleep. So I just got on the birthing ball and I like just found a corner and kind of like laid my head against the wall and just tried to like rest in between contractions. And I think at like 6, Kale got up and was like, well, he was already up, but he was like, I'm gonna make breakfast so you have something in your system before like things really pick up. So he made like a breakfast sandwich, and we brought the birthing ball out to the kitchen, and I just kind of like watched him cook. And in between contractions, we kind of like talk and laugh. And at that point, I was still able to do that. And then we ate breakfast, and things like started to pick up a little bit. I remember reaching a point, I think I moved back to the bedroom, and I kind of reached a point where I was like, okay, I don't really want to have any more contractions without you like right here with me. And so every time I'd have a contraction, he would come there and just like hold my hands, and I would kind of lean on him and just kind of work my way through it. And we did that until probably like 11:30. And then it was to the point where I was not talking in between contractions at all. I was basically just in between contractions, I was just recovering. Like I would have a contraction and I'd cry a little bit and have another contraction. And so at that point I was like, okay, I want my mom here. So, also I forgot to say this, but when everything started, like I texted my midwife, Kale was kind of texting her updates. I was texting her updates until I was like not really able to anymore. And then, so at 11:30, Kale called my mom and she came. And I think when she got here, I was on my knees and just kind of like leaning on Kale. And, my mom got there and she was like, let's do like one more contraction in this position. And let's try to change positions and do something a little bit different. Just so you like have a few contractions in different positions. So, we did that. I think she just had me like walk around the living room, kitchen area. And I would just kind of like, I'd walk for a little bit and I was just leaning on Kale, and then I would have a contraction to stop and like lean on him and kind of sway. And then after that, she wanted me to try going up and down the stairs. I did not like that at all because I would get like one step and just have like a really intense contraction. Like the stairs was rough.
On the stairs.
I did throw up on the stairs. Yeah. Not on the stairs. I had a bucket, but yeah. That was, I threw up twice, I think, but I don't even remember where I was the second time. Yeah. So that was like, that was intense. I think I made it almost to the top, and I was just like, I have to come back down. Like I can't do this on the stairs anymore. And Kale put some peppermint oil on a piece of tissue or something, and would hold it up to my nose whenever I felt nauseous. Cause at that point I was feeling pretty nauseous. And then, I came back down the stairs. Trying to think. So my mom, she's like, I really liked when I was in labor with all the kids, like I liked sitting on the birthing ball and kind of like leaning forward, putting my elbows on the bed. And that was my favorite position to labor in. And so she's like, why don't you try that? And so I did that and I hated it. It was like awful. And I was like, I almost felt like I wasn't angry at anybody, but I started to feel a little bit angry. Like, this is terrible. And so she had wanted me to do a different position after that, but she was like, let's get in the shower. She could kind of tell I was like not getting in a great place mentally at that point. She was like, let's just get in the shower for a little bit. You can sit on the ball in the shower. And so I really liked that. I just had like hot water on my back and I would just labor on the ball. And then Kale brought me in some toast, and he was always like in between contractions, he's always trying to get me to like take a bite of a cracker or drink some water or something. Or he had like a hydrate drink. He was getting me to drink and just a sip in between each contraction. And if he hadn't done that, I probably wouldn't have drank anything. I was like not paying attention at all. But he knew like, got to keep your energy up and stuff. So, I remember eating like toast in the shower, and I had like a birth music playlist that he played for me while I was in the shower. And I was in there for a while. Like our hot water lasts for a while. So I don't even know how long I was in there. I was in there for quite a bit. And then my mom was like, let's try to get out and maybe we'll use the peanut ball. Cause me and a friend had gone in half and half on a peanut ball, and she used it for her labor and then I used it for mine. And, so I laid on my side with the peanut ball in between my legs, and I was pretty much there until like transition. So I would do a few contractions on one side and a few contractions on the other side. And Kale would kind of just lay behind me and just hold me during the contractions. And so I was using the peanut ball in between my legs, and then I used the heating pad while I was on the peanut ball. So, During contractions, I wanted the heating pad on me. And afterward, I was like, I'm so hot, like take it off me. So they eventually I would just be like, I'm so hot, I'm so cold. And they would just figure out, okay, she wants it on during contractions and off afterward. And so we did that for a while and just rotated different sides. And I remember at one point my mom like wanting me to try a different position. I was like, no, like I'm staying right here. And at that point too, I think I went into transition because even the way I vocalized sounded different. Vocalization was huge. Like, I don't know how women go through it and just stay quiet the whole time. Like, I know there are some women that labor that way. I don't understand that. I feel like it helped me stay on top of things mentally. But I think I realized too, I was like, I felt like if I moved from the position I was in, I was like, I'm not going to be able to like stay on top of it mentally if I move. That I don't know why. I just felt that way. And so I just like kind of like would grab the poster of the bed like at every contraction and just like I think my vocalization started out as kind of like moaning, and then at that point it was more Kale kind of said it sounded like a roar or something, and so it just got more intense. And I remember seeing like Kale and my mom exchange a look at one point and Kale kind of mouthed like, "Is this transition?" And my mom was like, "Yeah." And another thing my mom did that was really helpful was she was like, it's very important to try to relax through all your contractions, everything, so your body is able to work. And I didn't realize how hard that would be, but she would just kind of take her hand and just rub it over whatever part of my body she felt like needed to relax. And that would kind of just remind me like, okay, this is the part of my body I need to really focus on relaxing. And I felt like I finally got on top of that. But then like shortly after, I remember thinking like, man, I feel like I'm really relaxing through everything, but like there's a lot of pressure down below and I can't really relax through that. And I think that was like my body like starting to like, I think bear down and push. Cause that was like right after transition and everything. And so my midwife actually got there while I was in transition. And, I had asked before she got there, I asked my mom, I was like, can I get in the birthing pool? Cause Kale had like set up the pool and everything. That was the whole thing too. Like he had trouble filling it up. He couldn't find the.
You may tell the story.
Yeah, you should tell the story.
So, with the birthing pool, my friend who they had just had their birth a month earlier, he had given me a coupling to connect to our shower head so that I could fill up with good water, not outside water, or through a water hose. So I had bought a new water hose, sterilized it, had the coupling ready, and she goes into trend, and it was very obvious for guys, if you're wondering. It was like super obvious that she was changing. Something was changing because they went from like groans and moans to like, like growls. And I was like, yeah, she's going into transition. We're getting close. And, she would like, her body would kind of arch, and it was just obvious the pain was intensifying. So, with the birthing pool, I was like, whoa, I need to get it set up. Like she's, what you just like clicks in your head, like, man, I need to do something. And so I got the birthing pool set up, the plastic down, the pool set up, and then started trying to connect the coupling to get the water hose, and I couldn't get the shower head off, and I couldn't find my wrench anywhere. And so like I walk outside to our neighbor's house, and they're just playing in the backyard with some of their family and kids. And I was like, "Sup, man? You got a wrench?" And he was like, "Yeah, I'll go check." And he was like, "How's your wife? When's the baby?" I was like, "Yeah, she's about to have it." He's like, "Oh yeah, like how far away?" I was like, she's about to have the baby." In the background, I could hear Kaitlyn just like screaming through the walls. And I'm just outside leaning against our fence, talking to the neighbor. So he brings me a wrench. He's like, "All right, well, good luck." And I was like, "Thanks, man." And so I go back inside, and his wrench wouldn't work.
Oh,
we could not get the shower head out. So I finally had to fill up pots and buckets of water, and heat up water on the stove. So that was my funny moment. That was the only time in the whole birth, the whole labor and delivery, where I felt any anxiety or worry. Everything else, Kaitlyn, just every bit of worry and fear we had leading up to it was nowhere there during the labor and delivery. She just killed it. Everything was like blown away by how good of a labor and delivery it was.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so that was the only moment where I got rushed and worried. Everything else was just happened, and it was so you just knew what to do. Like it just came so natural. So that was my funny moment.
Yeah. And he's like, Kaitlyn, I'm just going to run to Walmart. I'll be back in like 20 minutes to get a wrench. I was like, no, you're not. You're not going anywhere.
Don't leave me.
Yeah. So anyways, if you're setting up a birthing pool, maybe do a trial run. Make sure you can get the shower head off.
Yeah, definitely practice taking the shower head off.
Yeah. So anyways, but I kind of knew that was going on a little bit, but you're in such a zone. It just doesn't really, all that doesn't matter. There's a couple things I'm realizing I forgot that I'm going to kind of back up a little bit if I can. When I started laboring with the peanut ball, Kale got out some of her baby clothes, some birth affirmation cards I had written on because I was writing out stuff from scripture, just things that I wanted to speak over myself and over the baby and over the whole, process. And he was reading them to me and showing me baby clothes. And I remember thinking I'm in this mental space that actually I don't need any of that. None of that's really helping. But I was but it's sweet that he's doing that. So I'm just gonna smile at him for a second in between contractions. But yeah, I mean, it was cool to write all that stuff out, I guess. But for me personally, maybe we implemented it too late in labor. I don't know, but it didn't really make a whole lot of a difference. Another thing too, I do remember at one point saying, I can't do this. And my mom was like, but you already are doing it. You're doing this. It you can do it. You're going to deliver your baby. You got this. And Kale too, saying yes, you can do it. You're strong. That's one thing he kept telling me too, is you're so strong, which was so good for me to hear because having struggled so much mentally up until that point, it was I needed to kind of be reminded of that. And I remember at one point, so when I said I can't do this, from that point on, when I wanted to say I can't do this, I would kind of stop myself and be I can do this. This is really hard. This is really hard. I would say it's hard to kind of acknowledge man, this is rough, but also I can do this. And so I would try to switch. I would start to say I can't and then change it to I can. And I think that too, staying on top of it mentally is huge. Yes. And I think, yeah, I feel you would it's you're not controlling things, but you're controlling how you respond and how your body cooperates or how your mind cooperates with your body. And so that was huge, just being able to stay on top of it mentally. So yeah. So anyways, back to, I was in transition, set up the birth pool, and I told my mom, I was can I get in the birth pool? This is before the midwife got there. And she was well, I don't know that you want to get in until you're ready to push. And I don't know if I could have gotten in before or not, but she's you don't want to get in until you're ready because otherwise maybe things could slow down. You have to get back out. So she's when the midwife gets here, would you be okay if she checked you and just saw how far, how many centimeters dilated you were and then decide if you can get in the pool then? And I was okay, sure. But by the time the midwife got there, I was already pretty much bearing down. And so I remember thinking when I realized she was there, I was if they asked to check me, I'm going to be absolutely not. But they didn't ask because they could tell I was already there. So yeah, I got in the pool. Well, actually, first they tried to they took me to the bathroom to see if I could use the restroom, and I just couldn't. I couldn't. It was my body wasn't even aware that I had a bladder. Pretty much, it was just so much what I was feeling was focused elsewhere that I just could not use the restroom. But labor on the toilet was terrible. I did not like that. So yeah. So they got me to the birth pool, and I kind of just went instinctively to get on my knees and just kind of lean my arms over the birth pool, and I pushed for an hour, but my contractions were 10 minutes apart. So I really only pushed 6 times before she was out. So that was kind of cool. I do remember at that point, Kale had wanted to catch the baby. And we had kind of talked about it ahead of time. We were it'll kind of depend on the moment if I want you up on my head where I can hold your hands and stuff, or if I don't care and you can just, catch the baby. But at that point when I was pushing, it was I did not care who was in front of me, whether it was my mom or a midwife assistant or Kale, it didn't matter. I just needed somebody's hand to squeeze. And then, so Kale got behind me and he was ready to catch her. I actually bit my mom's hand in that. So that was, you're just so focused. It was I was holding her hand and I had a labor comb too. She had brought a comb for me to use. And I was squeezing her hand really hard. And just without even thinking, I just brought her hand in my mouth to bite. And she's whoa, whoa, whoa. Don't do that. The next day, her fingers were all black and blue. I felt a little bit bad, but I mean, it's all right. Yeah. So Kale did actually get to catch her when she came out. But so when her head started to come out, I definitely felt the ring of fire. Like that was rough. That was like the worst part. And I felt like my mind kind of did lose control for a second when I felt that. And I just kind of like, without even thinking, I just was like getting up out of the water, like just flailing kind of out of the water. And my midwife and Kale, they both like grabbed me and brought me back down the water because they were like, okay, her head's like already out. If you get out of the pool, like you have to stay out of the pool because, you know, the air could hit her face and she could breathe and you can't put her back in the water at that point. And so I was like, oh yeah, like I got my mind back together and got back down in the pool. But yeah, then I think they just kind of like, they have to reposition her shoulders or something.
Yeah, when she started coming up out of the pool, she was just like, the midwife and I were behind her, and I just like jumped in the pool and was just like grabbing, and she got back down, and then yeah, she came out one more push later, and it was just the cord was around her neck, and so I was like holding the baby while the midwife was like unraveling the cord.
Yeah. I actually got to pull up out of the water though, because like I was leaning over the side of the pool, and then they just like passed her under my legs, and I got to pull her up out of the water, and her eyes were already open and everything. It was really cool. My mom got on video, and so it's cool to go back and watch and just see like her come up out of the water like that. But yeah, she did have the cord on her neck once, but they got it out. It wasn't a big deal. She didn't cry right away. I guess I didn't realize that like not all babies cry right away. They did the like, I don't know what it's called, like little oxygen mask.
Bag valve mask.
Yeah.
The baby bag valve mask.
But like they weren't worried or anything. I think it was just like, you know, just to be on the safe side or something. But then she started crying and she was good. She latched pretty much immediately. And then I think I was in the pool with her for like an hour before like they were like, okay, let's pass her off to dad and like try to work on getting the placenta out. Cause at that point, like I still had some contractions, but like nothing was really like, it hadn't really started to come at all. So, I tried for like a contraction or two to like pass the placenta in the pool. And then that wasn't really happening. So we're like, okay, let's get you on the toilet. It ended up being like 2 hours before the placenta came. And my midwife told me, she was like, okay, I'm going to have to get up in there and try to get it out. And I was like, can you wait just a second? Can Kale pray for me? And then like see if it comes before you do that. So Kale came in and prayed for me. And like 5 minutes later, I passed it. So that was really good. I think I think one thing I wish I'd been a little better prepared for was like, I was so focused on like, get the baby here. And like, that's my end goal that I don't think I was quite like prepared mentally to still have to push out the placenta. And like, I was just like, okay, I'm done.
Right.
Like the baby's here. I'm done. And it was like, obviously the placenta was like nothing compared to a baby, but like, it's like, I just pushed her out of there and I don't want to push anything else out of there. And so I think there was a bit of a mental block, which is probably part of why it took so long for the placenta to come. But yeah, so the placenta came, I started to kind of pass out in the toilet. Like I kind of got tunnel vision and my hearing started to go. And I told them, I was like, I'm starting to pass out. And so they like pretty much picked me up off the toilet and carried me to the bed. And I never actually did pass out. I just kind of started to, but I think she said I was bleeding a little bit after the placenta, but it wasn't like super concerning or anything, but I guess it was enough that like I started to almost pass out for a second. And so anyway, they got me to the bed. I did need some stitches. It wasn't terrible. I think it was just like, yeah, it was just, I don't know how many stitches actually, but it wasn't a terrible tear, but it was enough that they definitely did need to stitch it up. So they did that. And then, I just kind of like tried to focus on the baby while they were doing that and kind of distract myself. And then they were like, okay, you haven't gone to the bathroom in a while. We need to try to get you to pee before we leave because, you know, don't want you to end up with a kidney infection or anything. And so they got me back in the toilet and I just could not go. It was like, could not feel any urge to do anything at all. And I really hit a mental wall there because they were like, okay, well, after a while they were like, we need to try to do a catheter because, like you could end up with a kidney infection if you don't, you know, if you aren't able to pee. And so I really hit a mental block there. I was like, nope, like I had my baby. I delivered the placenta. I just got stitches. Like I'm done. Like, I don't care if I get a kidney infection. I don't care if I die. Like I'm done. And, so I was like, just sitting on the toilet, just crying, like begging the Lord to like help me go. And, I was just refusing. I was like, you can't do the catheter. Like it really was. I just hit like this mental wall and Kale came in and tried to like talk me into it. And I remember telling him, I was like, if God told me right now to get the catheter, I would say no. And so like, that's terrible. Like I'm like I feel sinful on top of it, and I was just kind of struggling with that because I was like, that's just where I'm at right now. And but they did event. My mom came in. My mom's like, I've had it before. It's not because she's having hospital delivery. She had an epidural a few times, and she was like, I've had the catheter before. It's not great, but like it's nothing compared to everything you've already done, and it in the long run, it's gonna like save you so much. They were just like trying to reason with me a little bit, but I did reach a point where I was like, okay, I'll do it, and went to the bed, and then had another panic of like, I'm not gonna do it, and I finally got to a point where they let me. Or I let them do it, and it was like the easiest thing I did all day. But I just hit that like mental block there for a minute. So, yeah, and then she was born at 6:20, and we didn't like everyone was there until like midnight. So, yeah. 12:30 or 1. Yeah. So yeah, it just took a while. I was surprised, I think, by how long it took to just like get settled afterward. But I think it was cause like the placenta took 2 hours,
Sure.
and then I had to get stitched up. Then I had like fought the catheter. And so it just took a while, but I think it was, it was just a combination of some different things. But all in all, like it was a very smooth labor and delivery, especially for the first time. I was only from the time my water broke to the time she was born was 15 hours. But the time from when contractions started when she was born was 13 hours. So like, I know it's really good for first birth. So yeah, it was really a blessing. It felt like the Lord was just like, he was so in it. Like I was just able to stay on top of things. After having such a rough pregnancy, emotionally, mentally, I don't know that I could have like handled a really difficult birth or a really difficult postpartum. Like obviously there's healing and stuff. But like mentally, it was like I was so much better after she was born. Like it was night and day.
That's awesome. What a neat story. For your husband, since he's there, what was kind of your part during that labor, and what ways were you being able to help her and support her, like even in the background? What were the things that you were doing?
Yeah, I was there pretty much the whole time. Just kind of, just there. Kaitlyn's big on physical touch. That's probably her number one love language. So just kind of constantly touching her the whole time, letting her lean on me for contractions. So when her water broke, she told you about all that, and going to her parents' house and getting everything. And it started off kind of how I expected. She started panicking. And I was like, oh no, this is going to be a long birth. And I was like, please, Lord, give me strength to be a rock for her. And so I as I was driving down the road to her parents' house, a certain verse came to my mind, and I shared it with her. And when I got back home, she was fine. And she had regained control of her emotions, and she was in a really good spot. And so the contractions were tough early on, but not crazy bad. And so she was able to laugh and talk between contractions, and we fixed a breakfast around 7:30 or 8, and she would eat between that. So I would be there with her for a contraction, just touch her back, touch her shoulders, rub her face, massage her head, play with her hair, stuff like that. All the things that she really likes. And then in between, I'd be cooking bacon, and then run back in for another contraction. And then they started heating up around 10:30, 11. That's when we texted her mom and was like, there, no more games. She's not laughing or talking between contractions anymore. You may want to consider coming over. So her mom got there around 11:30, and then we just kind of double teamed it. Her mom offered advice, and I just basically was right beside her the whole time, touching her, especially from 10:30, 11. For the rest of the time until the baby was born, I was right beside her. From 4:00-ish to 11, I would like be with her through a contraction and then go do some things myself. And then, I have not found a way to say this that doesn't sound terrible, but I actually enjoyed the whole process. That sounds terrible
because
I know she
I love it.
I loved the whole thing. I thought it was awesome. I am uncomfortably aware that might be as good as it gets so far as a birth goes. I just thought it was awesome. I loved the whole process. It was so cool to watch everything. The Kaitlyn that struggled with prenatal depression totally transformed through the labor and delivery. She was a totally different person. The only time the prenatal depression Kaitlyn showed up was when they started wanting to put in the catheter. And that was the only time she really struggled mentally. Everything else, like when she hit the point of, I can't do this. And we said, but you're already doing it. You're doing it. And we offered, why don't you say, I feel like I can't do this, but the Lord will help me. And that's what she would start going, I feel like I can't do it, but I can do it with the Lord's help. And it was so cool. It was so cool to watch how she handled it. But that's pretty much, I was just there constantly touching her. I didn't offer a ton of suggestions. She basically just, we would say something and she would try it. And if she didn't like it, she told us. And if she did like it, she told us. Or she wouldn't tell us, she would just stay there in that position. And so we never really had any of those moments, right, babe? Where I don't think any moments where she like got mad at me or I said something really ignorant.
I do remember you saying something. I mean, like saying something a little snappy and apologizing earlier on, but I literally don't remember what it was.
Yeah, we're both really careful that if we say something to the other one that we know wasn't led by the Lord, we'll pretty quickly apologize. We've done that through our whole marriage. And so even in labor, I think she snapped at me and like immediately apologized. I was like, it's okay. You can, it's a little different right now. But so she was really quick to say, it was such a good experience. And then after the baby was born, that was probably, we experienced more challenge after Eden was born. Between 6:30 and 12:30, we had way more challenge than between 3 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. And so then the next hardest part for me was, finally after Kaitlyn was able to use the restroom, they used the catheter. Midwives left around 12:30ish, somewhere in that time frame. Her mom was there, and then her dad came by to see the baby real quick. And they left around 1:30 to 2 o'clock in the morning. And when they walked out, it was like, I'm the man, and I'm supposed to take care of my wife and this baby, and I'm exhausted. And I literally feel like I can't keep my eyes open right now. And I didn't know. I was like, man, this is, I actually don't have the strength to do this. And Kaitlyn just looked at me and she said, I'm on a high. I'm perfectly fine. You can sleep. And so I don't even remember, as soon as she said, you can sleep, I think my body shut off, and I don't really remember much after that. And so it was awesome. But to see how well the birth went after how challenging the everything was leading up to it, it was such a blessing. And so that was really cool.
Yeah, that is so neat. I love to end these episodes, since you're here with me, I'll have you go first. I love to end these episodes with your best advice for moms and best advice for dads. So with that, if you could like put into a sentence or two, like what comes to your mind when I say that, what would that be?
Yeah, best advice for the guy, practical advice is just read as much as you can. Read and study. And have your wife's heart. If you're married, have your wife's heart. Whatever position you're at in life. If you're not married, if it's an unplanned pregnancy that turned into this, and whatever the case is, as the man, actually love your wife, learn her heart, and know her leading up to the labor and delivery. That's going to be huge. So much of labor and delivery seems to be where you're at mentally. Mm-hmm. It can affect what happens physically. So take time to really communicate and learn your wife, learn your whoever it is that you're helping. Really learn them, not just listen to them, but learn their heart and what they like, what they don't like. And then study as much as you can, listen to podcasts and books and whatever. Just know general information about it. And then develop a strong prayer life. And other than that, everything seems to, you just kind of naturally know what to do. If you study properly, you know your wife, know her heart, and then you pray, and everything else seems to just kind of work out.
And then how about do you have any advice for moms, like from a guy's perspective, what could be helpful for other moms to hear?
Yeah, I mean, I would say most of us really want what's best for you. I know there's probably some guys that may not be like that, but most guys want what's best, and they don't really know exactly what to do. So please just communicate well with us. Communicate well. Tell us what you need as much as possible. Like, we'll try to read your mind, but it's not easy to read people's minds. So clear communication. Kaitlyn did a very good job of having everything mapped out. She had a birth plan ahead of time, communicated it all with me. And then if something was working during the labor and delivery, she communicated. If it wasn't working, she communicated it. Just, clearly communicate with each other. That would be my best advice.
Love it. Thank you. All right. Same question to you, Kaitlyn. Your best advice for moms, best advice for dads.
Yeah. Just from my personal experience, I would say, I think being prepared, like knowing as much as you can about birth and what to expect so things aren't like totally taking you by surprise would be one thing. The other thing is to, like, when you have the baby, you're not done. I think just if I had been able to mentally be a little, like, expect, okay, like, yes, your hardest work is done, but you're not totally done till you're totally done, you know? And I think if I had been a little better prepared mentally for that, that would have helped me a lot. So that's one thing I would say is just be prepared to still have to stay on top of things a little bit until, like, everything's totally wrapped up. That would be my best advice for moms. For dads, I would say, like, just be whatever she needs. Like, talk ahead of time about, okay, what do you expect from me during labor and delivery? Like, what do you want me to do? What can I learn to make you feel better? There were things Kale learned that I didn't end up wanting during labor, but, like, he was intentional about making sure, okay, like, we practiced the hip squeezes and stuff, which felt really good on my back when I was pregnant, but I did not like it during labor. But just the fact that he, like, was like, hey, is this how I do it? Like, am I doing it right? Like, those kind of things, it just made me feel really supported and like he had my back. I think too, this could just be me because, like, one of my love languages is words of affirmation, but just hearing him be like, you are so strong. Like, I'm so proud of you. Like, you've got this. Like, that he was acknowledging how hard the work I was doing was, while also, like, being like, hey, I see it. And, like, you're doing so good. Like, those kind of things were, like, really impactful, even though, like, there's not a lot when you're in labor. It's like, you're not going to be, like, expressing a lot of things to people. There's a lot going on internally. And so, like, when he would say things like that, it did affect me internally, even though nothing that I was saying or doing or, like, any looks I was giving, none of that was communicated. Like, I just looked like I was ignoring him, but, like, I was hearing it, and it was encouraging to me to be like, okay, yeah, like, I'm doing this. I am strong. Like, I can do this, things like that. So.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here and for both of you being willing to share this story with us today.
Yeah, thank you.